Well, good morning, everyone. It is wonderful to see some of you back who haven't been here since we had to wear masks. And since the mask requirement has been lifted, pardon me if I don't recognize some of you. I already asked someone's name who I have never seen with the mask off. And in fact, it looks like to me the whole sanctuary is new people. So it is wonderful to see your shining faces. Isn't it ironic that the one day of the year, Halloween, when people often do wear a mask, most of us at Unity have removed them. We've always marched to a different drummer here, haven't we? Actually, in France and most of Europe, they don't celebrate Halloween at all. They celebrate All Saints' Day on November 1st. It's the day when they honor those who have taken their light to another place. So in honor of our loved ones who are no longer with us in physical form, let us take a minute now to remember and honor them. Would you bow your head in silence for 1 minute? Amen. For those of you who have rejoined us today, this month we've been talking about the spiritual path, what it is, how to get on it, and how to stay on it. This path which is really the way home. This path for the way home is the way home to who you really are and what life is really about. That is the path home. It's a feeling of, or the capacity to feel love and joy and peace and the feeling of unity with all life. That is, with God and with all of God's children. I feel like this is particularly important right now because people who have not on the spiritual path are suffering more and more these days. I'm sure that you have noticed too. Our dear member, Bob Tucker, was telling me last week that the front page of the New Orleans paper said last week that our city is suffering from a general malaise. I'm sure we're all aware that there is more drug and alcohol abuse and more depression, and the statistics tell us that there are more suicides. And it isn't just in New Orleans. It seems like the whole nation is suffering from this malaise, and I honestly think it's because many people are just lost. There is a big spiritual hole in them. I suspect that many people in New Orleans who were formerly used to running around, from one festival to the next, one weekend to the next, and one party to the next, with all the COVID restrictions for the last year and a half, there haven't been as many avenues of escape from their feelings of emptiness inside, and that they have been forced to face this inner emptiness. The emptiness that was always there, but that they could run from much more easily before COVID. I think the malaise in our country might be exacerbated by the fact that our nation is split. We are just split in half. There isn't a feeling of unity in this nation. We're split in many ways because of politics, because of gender, race, economics, etc., etc. We are split in many factions, and that disunity is tearing our souls apart. Why? Because we are all one. And we're living as if we were a lot of separate parts. It would be like if our heart and our blood vessels didn't get along in our body. Talk about malaise. They are all part of the same whole. This disunity has produced kind of a down feeling, a kind of cynicism. And worst of all, I've noticed sort of an acceptance of this situation as normal. Like, that's the way life is. Let me give you an example. It's an article from the Washington Post that I read a couple of weeks ago. Every year, a writer named Bob Levy compiles and prints the best T-shirts of the year. Some of them are funny. You can laugh. It's okay. It's always nice to laugh. But what concerns me about these T-shirts is the prevailing Debbie Downer attitude and the presentation of a dysfunctional society as normal. Listen to some of these T-shirt slogans. I suffer occasional delusions of adequacy. Talk about the opposite of positive affirmations, huh? My mother is a travel agent for guilt trips. God made us sisters. Prozac made us friends. If they don't have chocolate in heaven, I ain't even going. Princesses, having had sufficient experience with princes, seeks frogs. Way to put down half of the population, right? This was one that was on the back of a passing motorcyclist. If you can read this on my back, it means my wife fell off. Great family values and compassion, huh? I used to be schizophrenic, but we're both okay now. What if the hokey pokey is really what life's all about? Talk about nihilism. I didn't climb to the top of the food chain to be a vegetarian. Don't even get me started on that one. Katrina and me both. Coffee, chocolate, men. Some things are just better rich. Great value system, huh? At my age, I've seen it all, done it all, heard it all. I just can't remember it all. I'm a teacher, in case you didn't know. Liberal arts major. Will think for money. That one is my pet peeve. Everyone's getting trained these days to go out and make money. Nobody's getting educated. Growing old is inevitable. Growing up is optional. If at first you don't succeed, skydiving is not for you. Old age comes at a bad time. In America, anybody can be president. That's one of the risks you take. Thought I'd get more of a laugh from that one. It is no wonder that spiritual teachers and mental health therapists are working overtime these days. Those T-shirts may be amusing. I laughed at them too. That we need to make a concentrated effort not to accept this kind of thinking as the way it really is. These negations of life seep into our consciousness and contribute to our acceptance of the attitude of, well, it's a crazy, hopeless, depressing world out there. And that is why we're devoting this month to the theme, the spiritual journey. Many people have lost their way on life's journey. I think you all are aware of that. And they are suffering. But we don't have to. And we can help others by helping ourselves. We can follow the spiritual path that leads home and show them the way home too. Home is traditionally a place, you think, where there's comfort, a place where we find love, happiness, a feeling of unity, no matter what the problems, and acceptance and peace. And that is what the spiritual path leads to. The ability to be capable of those things. Love, joy, unity, and peace aren't things we search for and find. Don't you know a lot of people that just keep moving around, searching and searching for people and places and institutions that embody that? It's not something we can search for and find. They are things for which we develop a capacity. It's a shame that many people endure lives of stress, fear, hopelessness, and depression when they could be cultivating a more evolved and more mature life, a life that the true spiritual path leads to, the way home. We here at Unity are all good, honest, caring people. The fact that you're here today shows that you are interested in being in the world, but not of it, meaning not of its lower tendencies. For example, the fact that you are here indicates that you believe in unity. Look at us. We are a very diverse group. Look around. All religions, colors, backgrounds, and personal lifestyles. And we all get along and we all care for each other. Everyone is welcome here. Everyone is accepted. It's always been that way. This is a place where we can literally and figuratively take off our masks and know that we are accepted because we believe in the inner divinity of everyone, and we stand for unity of all people and all ideas. We're all struggling. The fact that you are here means that you are working at being good people, which is a prerequisite to the spiritual path. There are no spiritual bypasses in that regard. And there is much, much more also on the spiritual path beyond these first steps. And every single step you take on that path leads you to more peace, joy, and a capacity to love and manifest abundance in your life. And that's what we've been talking about for the last month, activating our inner GPA system so that we can stay on that spiritual path and go all the way home. Home being that state of consciousness where we are capable of experiencing love, peace, joy, and unity with all beings all the time, even toward those whom we at times have issues with. It's okay, we're human. We're talking about manifesting heaven on earth. That's what it is. The detours from that path create the malaise that these t-shirts and the front page of the Advocate and so many other publications have been referring to recently. Suffering is just unnecessary. Things are going to happen out there, but we don't need to suffer. Problems are always going to be there, but it's the way that we perceive them in our consciousness, and we can use them to grow from, every one of them. We have created external wealth in our society, but internal poverty. We have found ways to fill our inner emptiness with external distractions, material possessions, the abuse of drugs and alcohol, but most people haven't been able to fill that inner emptiness. The solution really, is for people to face and deal with their feelings of emptiness. Face those feelings of emptiness and fear and stress and suffering, and not just go for a temporary fix. We take off our masks and we face who we are and what we are dealing with. It's okay, so that we can then rise above these issues. On the spiritual path, we turn our issues over to God. With God's help, we can find the road back home, the only road that has ever led us to who we really are and the eternal values and laws of the universe, which work. Every spiritual tradition has said that. This evolution in consciousness, this growing up that Reverend Robert Brummett talks about, is the spiritual path. And it is, as he says, no longer optional if we are to preserve our sanity, our health, our happiness, and I would say our society. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the spiritual journey and how to start on the path, namely formally committing to that path. No one gets to any destination, I'm sure you all know, without first identifying and committing to that destination and then starting on the right road. We can't leave New Orleans and get to California by taking the first road sign that we see. We might end up in Atlanta. And we don't get to California by taking the right highway to start with and then kind of meandering around as we see other signs. We need to make a formal commitment to that path, to our spiritual journey, to ourselves, to God, maybe to someone else out loud, and then recommit every day. Then we stay on the right road, and we check with our inner GPS system en route. Where am I right now? Where am I heading? Which direction? Am I still going in that direction? It's the same as driving to any destination. Then after we have formally committed on the path, we need to create, as we talked about before, some personal ways to stay on the path. On the road to California, our GPS system often reminds us that we have 50 miles to go on that particular road, or that we need to take an interchange 3 miles ahead, etc. This constantly reminds us of our destination. On the spiritual path, the same exact thing is true. It's very helpful to regularly check throughout the day. What am I doing? What am I thinking? What am I saying? Why am I doing it? This is where it might be helpful to have little rituals, like lighting a candle or incense in the morning while you're getting dressed, bowing to a sacred symbol in the morning, or devoting a certain amount of time at a structured time of day to spiritual reading or watching spiritual talks on YouTube or something. In the East, these little rituals are called doing your sadhana, and they are considered vitally important. They remind the body, the mind, and the emotions of their destination. We've got all three of those things, a body, a mind, and emotions. And they kind of go in different directions sometimes. But this is a stabilizing, little rituals are a stabilizing influence to help us. So today, let's say that you have committed to your spiritual path and that you have found little ways to stay on the path in the midst of life's twists and turns throughout the day. What are some spiritual practices that can help you evolve faster while you are on your path, headed home? The Course of Miracles suggests spiritual psychotherapy. I love that, spiritual psychotherapy. It teaches that the best psychotherapy primarily involves prayer and forgiveness. Prayer and forgiveness. A pretty simple concept to understand, right? We all know that and we all believe it, but it's not easy to do. Let's look at a prayer. Let's look at prayer in general. How often do we remember to turn everything over to God? It takes commitment and effort to remember not to let our egos start solving the problem. I do that so many times a day. I just am all into figuring something out. And then I go, This is my ego figuring it out. I totally forgot to turn it over to God. The main purpose of prayer is to experience our oneness with the omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence that we at Unity call God. God is all knowledge, all power, all presence, everything that is. God is love, which is that connecting glue of all that is, love. When we pray, we access this omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence, and we become one with it. We can then open up to letting it guide us and not our egos. Our earthly programmed ego, I might add. It's kind of like raising the antenna. You know, you got a radio here. Thank you, Lucas, for fixing this for me. You've got a radio. It's just sitting here, right? It's not doing anything. And then I get the antenna. I think I'll get the antenna here. I'll put the antenna up. And suddenly...
And that is what gets you to pay attention.
Whoa, that is not recorded. That is a radio station. It's Halloween, huh? It's kind of like raising our antenna, prayer is, and being able to access certain radio and television waves out there. They've always been there. Those waves are here right now going through this sanctuary. But we have to turn on the TV or the radio to access them. And that's what prayer can do for you. It helps you access and become one with God. That which is always there, but that we normally aren't bringing into our lives. And we tune in to what station we want to tune into also. Prayer is about letting go and letting God enter your life like those radio waves all the time, in all situations. The feature article in the latest Unity magazine is about affirmative prayer. It talks about how prayer has a direct effect on the chemistry of our bodies. It creates health by eliminating the negative toxins in our thoughts, kind of like those t-shirts. Prayer is therapeutic. It's spiritual psychotherapy. It changes us like psychotherapy does. We are transformed, and everything in life becomes transformed, everything in our lives. As a result, ultimately, the goal, of course, is to pray without ceasing, so that all day long our life will be a prayer. But until that happens, remember to set aside regular times in the day to pray and reconnect with God and reconnect with that oneness of all life, God, all God's beings and children. The second part of that spiritual psychotherapy, according to Course in Miracles, is forgiveness. Many of you have read the book, Forgiveness, The Way Home. When we forgive others, it helps our subconscious mind realize that humans are worthy of forgiveness. So we are better able to forgive ourselves too. It's sort of automatic, it's subconscious. And forgiving ourselves cures physical and mental disease. It also prevents disease from happening in the first place. And it frees us to enjoy our natural state, which is health, peace, and joy. That's your natural state. Anything less is unnatural. We want to get back to our natural state. And let's be honest with ourselves. Forgiving is not easy to do all the time. And many spiritual teachers I've worked with say that it is most difficult to forgive family members. So forgive yourself if it's hard to forgive them. It takes time. Most of all, it's hard to forgive yourself, period. But we must. The first step in the forgiveness process is to honestly acknowledge some of our dark thoughts about others and ourselves. That's part of taking off our masks that I was talking about earlier. Admitting who and what we are. What am I doing? What am I saying? How am I feeling about this person? The second step is to offer those dark thoughts to God and to be willing to release them to God. You are divine, and those dark thoughts are put there by our environment. So just shed them. Face that they are there and let them go. They are not you. You are divine. Many of us feel guilty about our dark thoughts about others. Maybe we hate them for how they hurt us at some point in life. But we've also been taught that we're nice people and we're not supposed to hate others. So we suppress that. But till we own up to ourselves, to our inner feelings, and take off our masks when we look in the mirror, we can't even begin to deal with them. It's kind of like the first step in AA, admitting that one is powerless with alcohol. If we own up to our feelings of unforgiveness, our dark feelings that we have about others or hatred, we can then turn them over to God, which is the second step. We aren't powerless when we have God's help. And sometimes, remember, forgiving takes time, and that's okay too. Do the best you can. You're on the road home. We don't start by taking a step and we're there. It's a road. I ran across a prayer recently that might help in this forgiveness process. It says, "Dear God, I desire to love more. Cleanse my thoughts of negativity toward others. Help me to see others the way that you would see them. Help me to find the good in every person I associate with." And reflected in my thoughts toward them. Isn't that beautiful? The point is to ask God to help you in your forgiveness process. You can't do it alone. Ask God to help you see things and people differently. Ask God. Don't try to do it all on your own. It is way too difficult for a human being. Last time I checked, we're all humans. That's a huge part of being on the spiritual path. The spiritual path and its principles of remembering to pray and learning to forgive are nothing new to any of you. I'm here just to remind you of the importance of keeping them foremost in your mind on a daily basis. Forgiveness and prayer keep your inner GPS system in good working order. They are integral parts of the spiritual path, and you just can't get where you're going until they are part of your daily life. I've heard it said that people first embarking on the true spiritual path feel like at first that they're in a car that's been stuck in the mud for many years, but that they finally get out of the mud through commitment to the process and then start rolling down the path. Mud flying everywhere at first, slowly, but surely. And then faster and faster they go until they're just buzzing down the highway, going home, every mile getting easier and easier, and life getting better and better. So take your dark thoughts, your unforgiveness to God for help. You can't do it all alone, and you don't need to. God is like a tow truck in that regard. Allow God to pull you out of the place where you have been stuck and put you squarely on the road home to peace, joy, and the ability to appreciate life and love. So this week, give yourself some spiritual psychotherapy. And it's free. You give it to yourself. Make that commitment to stay on the path, to get on the path, and find yourself some techniques to remind you as you're on the path to stay on it during the day. And this week, add a little bit of spiritual psychotherapy to help you keep going when there's some things on the side of the road that look appetizing, especially when the storms come and it's harder to navigate. Pray and forgive. Pray by giving everything, all your troubles over to God to help guide you and to help you see things differently. Then work on forgiveness of yourself and others. And remember to ask God for help. You are not ever alone. The spiritual path is your path home, and God is your GPS system. And don't forget that you deserve the comfort, peace, and joy of home. It's what you're about. It's what you deserve. And if you just make the commitment and do a few little things differently in your life, you'll get there. I guarantee.